Hello guys, my name is Vitali and I'm the lead cinematographer at Aprina Studios. I'm also an editor for about 15 years, and throughout the years I've learned a lot. In this video, I want to share one of those things that I've learned, which is proxy workflow with editors. And this workflow that I've kind of optimized over the last 2 years with Final Cut has proven to be very solid. It has helped my editors have a perfect experience in a way for editing where it's very seamless and easy to use, and the file sizes are, probably most importantly, tiny, small, where it's manageable to upload. Let's get right into it. Before we actually begin, we want to have a ready library in Final Cut, which means you have the keywords collection, you have the ceremony that's already synchronized. In this case, we'll be having the editor edit the ceremony. And this is a demo project. I put basically half the footage in there just to kind of speed up the process, but you'll get the point. Surprisingly, the first thing to do is to close Final Cut and to actually duplicate the project. So we're gonna go into our wedding project. And in this case, I'll just duplicate the project. And once it's done duplicating, I'll rename it, call it dash editor. That way I keep in dash editor. Let's go ahead and do that. And second I'll do is I will actually create a folder called dash editor. And I'll actually throw this project right in there. But this is gonna be my DropBox folder. Later on in the video, I will show you how to upload this folder into DropBox. So let's go ahead and open up the editor project. Before we start on the next step, I want to explain a few things. We're not going to be creating proxy files. What we're actually going to do is we're going to force Final Cut to optimize the media. So temporarily, our file sizes are going to grow kind of a lot, but we will later reconvert them into H.264 files. And the reason we do this is because the proxy workflow in Final Cut is not that perfect, and additionally it requires the editor to force them to click proxy. And I don't want them to be necessarily using very small file sizes. I actually want them to color correct and color grade. So I actually want pretty decent files. And this is why I do this. Additionally, this forces the editor not to relink much, and there will be some relinking going on, but I'll explain why. Number one, we synchronize our camera times throughout the day, and the reason we do that is it's a lot easier to edit when you're able to have, let's say, 2 cameras on a creative session, and you literally see camera A and camera, this is camera A, and then camera B is right here doing exactly the same shot. So it's a lot easier to edit when the shots are together. And using bringing in files into Compressor, converting them, and then relinking them, you lose the time metadata. So for editors, they basically just see a bunch of files. What we found is that editors edit best when they have the workflow that I have, which is a pretty awesome workflow. But this is an opinion, and I found that yes, my edits became a little bit better when I solved this problem. And this is the reason we go through all this hassle. So the first step is to actually go in. We're going to go ahead and I'm going to organize it with basically by camera name. And what we're going to do is we're going to actually select all camera files, excluding drone shots. Audio is automatically excluded, but excluding drone shots. For some reason, I can't get it to work with drone shots, so we're going to be uploading drone shots. What we're going to do is we're going to right-click, transcode media, and we're going to create optimized media. Before I click OK, I'm going to do one thing with the drone files is I'm actually going to go in, source media, and I know I only filmed drone in my venue shot, so I'm actually going to go Command C, and I'm going to go into the editor, and I'm also going to create a folder called 01 source media. I'm not going to create subfolders, but I'm going to go ahead and paste it here. This is going to be, again, my DropBox file. The other thing that the editor needs is all of my audio. So I'll do the same things. I'll go in, and I know I only have audio in the ceremony, but if you want to, you can just go into the source media folder, search for .wav, and select all the .wav files from that wedding. We would paste it as well into the source media file. That's one step. And then we go ahead and create optimized media. This is going to create ProRes I believe it's just ProRess files that I will later be using in Compressor to convert them. So let's go ahead and click OK. and let the process begin. We can watch, once the process begins, we can watch the progress here. Don't get ahead of yourself. Let the process finish before you continue on to the next process. All right, so transcoding has been completed in Final Cut into ProRes. So the media is optimized now in Final Cut, and we can actually confirm this by looking at the available media representations, and it says original and optimized. So optimized has worked. What we're gonna do is we're gonna continue on to the next step, quit Final Cut, and we're gonna go into my project, and we're actually right-click onto the actual project, show package contents. We're gonna go into wedding day, transcode media, high quality media. These are the actual files. So let's do a little comparison right now. I'm gonna open up another file. That way we kind of see the process and why we're doing this. So we're gonna actually analyze. Let's go into ceremony. Let's go look at the first shot of the ceremony. This is the original file. 3410 is 3.67 gigabytes. The optimized file is 5.75 gigabytes, so it's bigger, but that's because ProRes is bigger. What we're gonna do now is we're actually gonna convert it into H.264, and the reason we're doing this step is we want Final Cut to remember in its database that, hey, I have these files and here's the metadata about them, and I created optimized media. Now what we're doing is we're basically tricking Final Cut into looking not at ProRes files, but at H.264 files. So what we're gonna do is we're actually gonna go ahead and open up Compressor, and we're gonna go ahead and throw all of these files into Compressor. At this point, the bitrate that you select is how much you save or how much file space you save. I recommend doing at least 10 megabits per second. I prefer to lean a little bit more that, hey, I don't care that it's going to take a little bit longer to upload, because most of the time it's the upload that is an issue and downloads are usually not an issue. So that's kind of the process that I'm going to do, is just convert it into H.264 10 megabits. And I have a little up to 4K editor 10. So we're gonna go ahead and just drop it onto Compressor, and we're gonna start this batch. And I'm just gonna directly into source, and the files are gonna appear right next to each file. And then once this is done, we're gonna go ahead and move on to the next step. Let's go ahead and start the batch process. All right, so Compressor's done. Files are right here, right next to the source files. And our next step is to basically delete the optimized media and keep the converted files. Additionally, we have to rename the converted files so they match these same files. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go into this view. I'm gonna organize by date modified. That way we have this list of files. We will go ahead and delete these files. And we're going to select all of these files, and we're going to batch rename. So we're going to right click, rename 278 files. We're going to type in what we need to delete, replace with nothing, and we're going to click rename. This is going to rename all files. These are our H.264 proxies now. Now let's actually look at what happened to the file sizes. Last time we compared and they were bigger. So let's look at that first ceremony shot, which was 3.67 gigabytes, and that was a 3410. 3.67. This one is now 213 megabytes. People can push this to 3 megabits or 5 megabits if you want it to be even faster, but in reality, I keep it at 10 megabits. So we're pretty much done converting the ProRes files into H.264 files. So we basically tricked Final Cut. Hey, we have this optimized media in this high quality media folder. Final Cut has no idea that we just converted the files. Let's go ahead and open the project, the editor project. Actually, what we can do is also out of curiosity is we can compare the file sizes from this. So the comparison is our total project is 15.22 gigabytes. If you looked at source media alone, it was 186 gigabytes. That's with audio and the video and the drone shots. So Our project is more than 10 times smaller using this method, yet Final Cut, again, let's look if it looks at it as optimized. Final Cut thinks it's looking at optimized media right now. So we have tricked Final Cut into treating our proxy files, which are more than 10 times smaller, as optimized media with a few benefits. One of the biggest ones is we don't actually have to go into proxy because the quality is going to be smaller. Second of all is, and one of the most important reasons is, it keeps the metadata of files. So now looking at these same files that we're looking at, they're right there, right next to each other. Camera A and camera B, they're at the same place, same time, camera A, camera B. This gives the power for the editor to see the files right next to each other. And for me, this is a huge deal. I want to make sure my editors have this opportunity, as the edits will be better. So how do you actually get this to your editor? And there's two ways to do it. One is a zip file, and the second is a sparse image. And the reason we do zip file versus sparse image is Dropbox has a 50 gigabyte per file limit. So if your file is more than 50 gigabytes, you're going to have to go the sparse image route. If your file is smaller than 50 gigabytes, you can go a clean zip. As we can see, our editor file is 11.6 gigabytes. So we're actually going to right click and compress it. The reason we do this is because you do not want to send a Final Cut project over a cloud storage provider like Dropbox, Google Drive, or any of those services. The reason you don't want to do that is you will run into corruption. Keep in mind, do not zip up the source media. There is no point. Your editor from Final Cut, they'll have to point to this folder that they will download. But most of the files, they will not even be relinking. But the other way, if your file is bigger than 50 gigabytes, let's say it's like 51 or 52 or even 200 gigabytes, the next process, create a sparse image. We're going to use disk utility to create a basically virtual hard drive. What we're going to do is we're going to go File, New Blank Image, and I'll actually go ahead and go right there, and I'll actually click on the project just to kind of give it the same name. I'll go back here, give it the same name, and the partition size we want is guide partition map. Image format, we're going to do sparse bundle disk. We have to do sparse bundle disk. APFS is one of the formats. I still do macOS Journal. In the future, I'm probably going to switch to APFS, but that's that. Gigabytes, just do it about double the size of your Final Cut file. So I'm going to do 100 gigabytes, and I'm going to create it directly in here. I'm going to click Save, and it's going to quickly do that sparse image, and it's going to go ahead and mount it. It literally becomes, the sparse image becomes a hard drive that you just dump your files. So what you're going to do is you're going to just take this, and you're going to throw it into there, and it's going to start copying. Once it's done copying, you're going to go ahead and eject it. That project, once it's done copying, you do not have to zip. You will upload source media and the sparse image file into Dropbox. So the zip is done and the sparse image has copied. I'm going to go ahead and eject the sparse image. The zip is 11.55 gigabytes. The sparse image is slightly bigger, to 11.86. One thing to note, once you put these files into Dropbox, especially the sparse image, don't make any changes to it. This is only for your editor to get the files. So because I don't care about the sparse image and the file is less than 50 gigabytes, I'm going to go ahead and delete the sparse image. I'm going to move the editor project out of this folder. I don't need it anymore. So this editor folder, I need to send it to Dropbox. It's pretty basic. I'm using a program called MacDropAny to create a hyperlink or an alias to this folder, so I don't have to drop this folder into Dropbox. I want the link to exist in Dropbox pointing to this folder. So I'm going to open up MacDropAny. It's a pretty awesome app. And I'm going to go ahead and select the folder, which is this folder, editor. And we're going to set the name and location where in Dropbox I want it to appear. So I'm going to go ahead and put into promise into Dropbox. And I'm going to put it into the folder, and I'm going to press choose folder, and we're gonna click sync. At this point, it's just a waiting game to get the project synced. But now let's pretend your editor has downloaded the project. What are his steps? I'm actually going to copy this folder onto my desktop, and I will pretend that this is what the editor has downloaded from DropBox, and I'm going to eject my main hard drive to show you how it works and what are the steps for your editor to take. So I ejected my hard drive that had the original project on there, and here is the folder that your editor would have downloaded. Let's go ahead and open it up. Here's that source media. It has audio and drone shots. And here is the zip file. Let's go ahead and unzip it. If your editor has read and write permissions to your DropBox folder, I always recommend take the zip file out. Do not edit within DropBox. So basically either turn off DropBox or get rid of or move these files. The source media can stay in there, but the actual Final Cut project, move it out of the DropBox folder. You do not want to be editing Final Cut in DropBox or Google Drive or iCloud. You want to simply use it to transfer files. So your editor is going to open this file and see what happens. Keep in mind, we have ejected our hard drive. As you can see, all the media is here. No relinking necessary. Only the predictable stuff. Drone is gone and audio is gone. So right click, file, relink. And the only thing we're relinking is we're just relinking source media to the drone and the audio. And it's gonna say, hey, there's a bunch of stuff that didn't relink. That's fine. It's trying to find the original. You are tricking Final Cut into this whole proxy / optimized media. It's going to do a quick relink, and you're going to see that, hey, it's all good. There we go. We have a solid project ready for an editor to work on. It was tiny. The whole project was how big? 15.24 gigabytes. Again, way smaller than the original. Your editor has a seamless experience. He has the perfect files right next to each other. There's multiple cameras filming. It's super easy to edit. That one big benefit of content created date, they're right next to each other. So this is the process of tricking Final Cut into using H.264 Proxy files as your optimized media, and being able to send a very small package to your editor. But that's not it. What does your editor do? So let's say your editor edited a project. The way to send a project back from your editor to you is, number one, is either export as XML, and that's something that we do. What I would recommend is closing down the project, duplicating this project. This is probably the safest way, but if it's a big file, it becomes kind of big. And then right-clicking, showing package content, going to the wedding day, transcoded media, high-quality media, deleting this file, closing, right-click, and compressing this file, and sending this file back. And as you can see, this file itself, 42 megabytes. You probably don't even have to use DropBox for this, but if you have read and write permissions on DropBox, I would just drop that file directly back into DropBox, and in this case, I would receive that file, I'd open it, and I would open up my master project, and I would just drag the project into my master file. One thing I would recommend before doing that, though, is when you do open up the editor's copy, relink the files with your files, even though all the optimized media is gonna actually not even require relinking because your hard drive's loaded, and it's gonna look for the files on your hard drive, which is perfect. But like the audio and the drone files, those are the files you're gonna wanna relink, and then drag your project into your master project, and that's pretty much it. It's a super amazing process, something that I've desperately needed years ago, finally optimized and figured it out in the past year. And we've been using this process all of 2019, and it's really sped up our deliveries and getting the documentary edits out to our couples a lot faster, and just such a better process. I would love to hear your feedback if you are going to use this, or maybe you have some questions. I can answer your questions in the comments. Thank you, and have a great year.